Your recording has begun. So hello and welcome, marhaban. My name is Sarah Myers, Ismi Sarah, and I'm part of the Anar organizing team. I myself am an artist and educator, joining everyone here from Minneapolis, Minnesota, Minnesota Makoche, the homeland of the Dakota people, where the Anishinaabe people have also long resided. I am here to lay out our event today and make sure we're all situated and ready to go before I hand things over to our speakers in Palestine. Um, for those of you who haven't tried out the chat, I just want to invite you to try out the chat right now. If you are unable to turn on your camera, I will look to our tech people behind the scenes maybe to look into that and figure out what's going on. I'm sorry about that. If you're running into technical issues, I appreciate your grace and understanding as we move forward. So if people haven't tried out the chat today, I invite you, if you're comfortable, to just share some thoughts in the chat right now. Tell us where you're joining us from. What's your connection to Palestine? What brought you to this event today? Any greetings, just so we get a sense of people being able to access that. Thank you. I see people joining from Oakland. There are many people earlier talking about Southern California, Denmark, Bay Area, Washington, Portland, from Germany. Beautiful. Thank you all so much. Okay. Well, I will continue to invite you to keep sharing your voices in the chat as we go forward, and I'm going to move us on into our agenda. So as I said, we're here to invite everyone to learn more about ANAR's current and future work and provide a deeper understanding of the political violence in the West Bank and the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and how ANAR is addressing these circumstances. We also hope to give you concrete ways to support ANAR and a clear roadmap to get involved and or donate to the organization as you're able to. So the whole event will be 90 minutes. The first hour is our welcome now. Then we'll move on very quickly to our three speakers, Reverend Dr. Munzer Isaac, Rami Khader, Dara Rafidi. And then we'll offer some ways to get involved. That will be about the first hour of our time together. And then in the last 30 minutes, we'll have the Q&A and we'll have a closing. So that said, I'm going to move us on to our first speaker. I would like to introduce Reverend Dr. Munzer Isaac, the president of ANAR's Board of Trustees. He is a Palestinian Christian pastor and theologian, serving as pastor at the Evangelical Lutheran Christmas Church in Bethlehem and the Lutheran Church in Beit Sahor. He is also the academic dean of Bethlehem Bible College and the director of the influential Christ at the Checkpoint conferences. Welcome, Reverend Isaac. I'll turn things over to you now, and let me stop sharing the screen.
So you see me.
And there we go.
All right. Good afternoon, good evening. Depends where you are joining us from, and thank you for joining us for this event, our first event at ANAR. And I'm very happy to open our discussion, and I hope that you will find this meeting beneficial and meaningful. And so thank you, Sarah, for the introduction. You know, I speak to you, and we all speak to you here from Bethlehem in very difficult circumstances. We all wish we were speaking in different circumstances. Very few miles from here, maybe an hour drive from here, Gaza is going through a genocide. And many of us are not just devastated, but feel powerless, doing all that we can to lobby, to push world leaders to stop this genocide, which has now reached the phase of people dying from starvation. And it's hard for us to understand the level of dehumanization that it takes for the world to be okay with people dying from starvation. The context is that this war did not start in October 7th. And before we talk about this war, I think it's really important to emphasize that throughout the ongoing 76 years of Nakba, of Palestinian catastrophe, we have not stopped as Palestinians living, existing, or even resisting. And my premise and my point for this small talk is that what we're doing here right now with the launching of this important initiative, ANAR, is part of our resistance. And I hope that you realize that what ANAR represents is part of the Palestinian resistance. And it's also a very small sample of the strength of the Palestinian people. So I think it's going to be something that marks us as an organization that we started in the midst of a genocide. And I hope that this will make us even more resilient. So to talk about the context, this is 76 years of ongoing Nakba. Our Nakba did not stop. It's not as if we're going through different events. No, it's the same Nakba that started 76 years ago. And I always address the reality in Palestine by pointing to certain myths that exist around the reality here that many people, I think, believe in these myths. And I think it distorts our understanding of the reality. And that myth actually can be summarized, those myths, with two words. Many people think of it as a religious conflict. And what I want to say is that it's not a religious conflict and it's not a conflict. So it's not religious and it's not a conflict. We've been living 76 years of colonialism. And I hope people don't, I hope you realize that when we say Israel is a settler colonial entity, we're not saying anything controversial or radical. This is how Israel started. Israel as a state was built on not just Palestinian land, but on the ruins of the towns and villages of the people in Gaza and the people in refugee camps around the world. This is a component that many people miss about what's happening even today in the genocide in Gaza. That 70% of the people there are refugees from 1948. So this system of settler colonialism is built on the premise destroy to replace. This is what happened in 1948, and this is what the Israeli leaders are telling us they're willing to do right now in Gaza. And this is what has been going in the West Bank since 1967. Destroy to replace, building these settlements or colonies at the heart of the West Bank. And this ongoing system from 1948 until today has created right now a reality of a state that exercises apartheid. And again, I hope I'm not saying anything controversial. This is just, it's now something that is established around the world by not just human rights organizations, but the UN international agencies. A system of segregation and apartheid that created here in the West Bank, what I call them as gated communities, blocks. We're right now in the Bethlehem block. And all of this is important to understand the context of our work here. We're talking about the siege of Gaza. The siege in Gaza, that this is the 17th year of the siege. I want you to understand that all it takes is for Israel to close 2 checkpoints around Bethlehem, and then Bethlehem becomes another Gaza. The same applies to Hebron, the same applies to Ramallah, to Nablus, to Tulkarem. This is what Israel created even in the West Bank. Gated communities, big prisons that Israel control everything around us. And within the cities like in Bethlehem area, everything is crowded, not much to do. And we really, when we talk about Bethlehem as a big prison, we'll only describe it life as we perceive it, because the Israeli occupation controls every aspect of our lives. Um, so this is the context we live in. And I think many times when people talk about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, this distorts the reality. It gives the impression that we live in a situation in which there are two countries fighting. We don't have two countries fighting. We have one country that has been applying systematic oppression and domination of another community, of the indigenous community. And as I say this, I want you to begin imagining the level of trauma and challenges we are facing as a community over these years, from displacements, from the different shapes of violence that Israel exercises on us. You know, the terms that define our lives are checkpoints, separation walls, soldiers, invasions, incursions. Even at Bethlehem right now, Israeli incursions have become a daily reality. And to bring it to our work at ANAR, I think the tragedy of the system of colonization and dehumanization, because for colonization to function, one of its tools is the whole idea of dehumanizing the other. And we don't have to look beyond Gaza to understand just the level of dehumanization it takes, even the level of racism, I would argue it takes for the world to be okay with the starvation and the current genocide against the people of Gaza. We should not be surprised, because the world was okay with 17 years of siege. And so now they are okay with this genocide. And again, I can't help but think of the deep and systematic dehumanization of Palestinians and of Palestinian children, to the extent that we're talking about 13,000 children who have been killed in Gaza for now, and the world is still deliberating whether we have a ceasefire or not. This dehumanization, which functions from the outside but from the inside as well, is part of the tools of empire that allows it to continue its system now. Here in the West Bank, as we watch this genocide unfold in Gaza, there's so much fear, there's so much anxiety. I'm a parent, I have two kids, and my children, they're 11 and 9, they ask me, will this war come here? They see what's happening in Gaza, and we try to shield them from the brutal images. We don't want our children to see these bloody, brutal images, but they know about the war in Gaza, and they keep asking us. And sometimes, my son prays, thank you, Lord, because there is no war here. We're teaching them about solidarity, but I can't even imagine what, the layers that it builds in them from such an early age to realize that, just here in Gaza, there is this brutal war. Having said all of this, I want to bring it back to what we're doing here. In the midst of this difficult circumstances, and those who know us Palestinians know not just how resilient we are, but how, we don't give up. And even though we're very much engaged and pouring ourselves into trying to stop this war on a personal level and as a community, that doesn't prevent us from continuing not just to exist, but to resist through building and through creating new initiatives. To me, ANAR represents healing, and it's part of our Palestinian, both, I would say, resilience and resistance. We want this war to stop. Uh, we we want justice. We want those who committed this genocide to be held accountable. But we can't just fall a prey to this mentality of feeling sorry about ourselves. And at the same time, we can't rely on outsiders. We have to do and to proceed with this healing even from now. And one of the things I said recently is that I realized how much these circumstances brought us together as Palestinian people. And I hope that with such an initiative that we will hear more about now, uh, we begin even from now the long process of healing that we will desperately need. Thank you again for joining us, and I bring it back to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Reverend Isaac. So much to meditate on, and I hope that people have a chance to ask more questions, or they will have a chance to ask more questions as we progress. I'm going to move us on now to our next speaker. I am honored to introduce Rami Khader, the founder and executive director of ANAR. Rami is a humanitarian, artist, and psychosocial support trainer from Bethlehem, Palestine. In addition to his work on ANAR, he has been the founder of several notable initiatives and organizations, including DR Theater, DR Academy for Children and Youth, and the Bethlehem International Performing Arts Festival. You can read more about Rami in the bio that's been posted in the chat. I'll go ahead and turn things over to you now, Rami.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm truly inspired by the number of people who signed up for ANAR's online event. And I will take this as a sign of hope from all of you that healing is indeed important in a context of oppression and genocide. I want to thank you for taking the time to learn about ANAR, a not-for-profit organization from Bethlehem, Palestine. I will start by talking about the reality of living in Palestine, the past, present, and the future. A reality that is shaped by oppression, political violence, and constant domination, marked by trauma and suffering. This collective reality, shared by millions of Palestinians, children, women, men, elderly, disabled, who have been denied their rights and dignity for decades. The collective trauma that we experience as Palestinians is not accidental or incidental. It is intentional and systematic. It is part of a strategy of Israel to dominate and silence us, a policy to violate international law and human rights by a systematic practice from one generation into the other, to inflict pain and terror on us and generations of children. To take oppression not only a reality, but make it a norm. We have seen this collective trauma lately in action in Gaza, where Israel committed a genocide against our people and massacred thousands of civilians, including many children. We have witnessed a well-documented and a well-televised genocide that have seen how Israel turned homes, schools, hospitals into rubble, using illegal weapons and machinery to target civilians and children. Israel now is using starvation of civilians as a method of warfare in the Gaza Strip, which is a war crime as Israeli forces are blocking the delivery of water, food, and fuel and medical critical supplies. An entire population is experiencing what we thought would never happen. You see, the genocide in Gaza is not an isolated incident. It is part of a long history of colonization, illegal expansion, oppression, ethnic cleansing, and injustice that we have endured as Palestinians, not only for one generation, but for generations. It was part of a systematic plan to wipe out our existence, our rights, and a cruel reality that we must deal with on daily basis as Palestinians. If you ask us how we feel, our normal answer would be we are angry, shocked, and outraged by the war crimes that Israel committed in Gaza. We are shocked that they have massacred thousands of innocent civilians, including many children, babies. Yet, we are still in shock that Israel got away with those televised war crimes. That political leaders on many spectrums chose to favorite genocide and apartheid over the rights of innocent children. But this trauma did not start recently in Gaza. It has been going on for a long time. It has been affecting every aspect of our lives. We have inherited trauma from our ancestors who witnessed the brutality of Nakba, ethnic cleansing, forced displacement, Naksa, the first Intifada, the second Intifada, exile, the continuous land theft in the West Bank, and the multiple wars on Gaza. We have passed on this trauma to our children, who face Israeli occupation, settler colonialism, checkpoints, and imprisonment on daily basis. Our children internalized this trauma in their bodies, their minds, and most importantly, their narrative. In this case, trauma is not only individual, but also collective. It affects us as a people and as a community. It affects our relationships, our values, our beliefs, and our dreams. It prevents our ability to cope and to heal. We actually never experience the feeling of a post. It is always continuous. The impact of intergenerational trauma on the children of Palestine is unimaginable. They are the victims of a long history of violence and oppression. They are the inheritors of a legacy of pain and fear that has been passed down from their ancestors. They are the survivors of a brutal reality that has robbed them from their childhood. The children of Palestine have been unchilded by the trauma they have experienced, witnessed, and inherited. They have been forced to grow up too fast and too hard, that they never got the chance to experience the beauty of being children. They have been stripped of their innocence and joy, replaced by a constant state of alertness and maturity. We have seen this in the children who have been imprisoned by Israel, some as young as 12 years old. They have been taken away from their loved ones in the middle of the night in a violent and terrifying way, subjected to torture, abuse, and humiliation in prison, deprived of their basic rights and needs, and completely weak and traumatized in their small bodies and minds. What happens to children is a moment of negative awakening that their families, fathers and mothers, are not able to protect them anymore. Their government is not able to protect them. Their innocence is not able to protect them, and therefore they start to develop a more matured self and narrative, a more alerted self as a coping mechanism with a brutal, unexpected experience. Children in Israeli juvenile are interrogated as adults, and they are asked by the end of the interrogation process to sign documents as adults, something they have never done before as children. They are forced to sign a confession that they cannot even read as it is written in Hebrew. I remember a child who told me after he was released from prison 12 years old. It was dark most of the time. I only heard sound of people screaming out of fear. And for the first week, I was terrified, cried a lot, peed on myself. But after a week, I found myself numb. And when they released me after 3 months of detention, I felt the same way in my room and wasn't able to go back to life again. My school was too childish for me. He did not only build a coping mechanism, but an experience that forced his body to embody trauma to be able to survive. Trauma was indeed not only a coping mechanism, but also a survival mechanism. And it is not only the children who have been detained who experience unchilding. It is also the children who face daily obstacles and dangers on their way to school. They must pass through checkpoints, electrical wires, climb over walls and fences, and risk their lives near Israeli illegal settlements. They endure harassment, violence, and threats from the Israeli settlers, guarded and protected by Israeli army on daily basis. They must fight for their right to education, right to play, right to be children, which is often denied and disrupted by Israel. To understand the growth pattern of illegal settlements and settlers in the West Bank, in a 30-year span, they went from 2,000 illegal settlers to 700,000 settlers living illegally in the West Bank. Give it another 20 or 30 years, and they would surpass the number of Palestinians living in the West Bank. According to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, Israel demolished at least 15 schools in the West Bank in 2023. 58 other schools are currently under partial, full demolition or stop work orders. These demolitions have violated international humanitarian law and disrupted the education of thousands of Palestinian children. Children living and experiencing brutal circumstances under occupation develop coping mechanisms to be able to deal with the uncertainty and insecurity of living under occupation. Imagine with me here how we as parents feel, knowing that our children could be unsafe, and that it is not the case always that we are able to protect them or change their life into a better one. This is the reality of the children of Palestine, who make up almost half of our population. My children learned in school about child rights and asked me once if the war in Gaza, if those rights are applicable to the children in Gaza. And when I asked my child why he thought that way, he cited the massacred children in Gaza. Let me share with you my experience of working with the children of Masafer Yatta in Hebron. When I talked to them, I realized that their eyes were eager to tell me so many things they have experienced. And when I asked them to share with me their thoughts, they weren't able to do so. One of the children told me, "Life is like this." And I asked what this means. He said, "It is difficult." I asked the children if they play, and that is when one said to me, "We play, but always watch out for settlers to make sure we are safe." Children in this area developed a sense of alertness and security beyond their comprehension and ability as children. I realized then that they had given up their childhood as a way to deal with the harsh reality of living under occupation. They stopped playing. They were not just traumatized by isolated events, but by a systematic and deliberate policy of Israel to crush and control their life. hoping to force them to leave as the whole area of Masafir Yatta is planned to be forcibly evicted by Israel. Israel turned their life to an extreme, violent, and difficult one to force them to leave. These children are part of a generation of Palestinians who had inherited a legacy of trauma as a survival mechanism. According to OCHA, 2023 was the deadliest year ever for Palestinians in the West Bank and East Jerusalem since OCHA started keeping records in 2005. More than 507 Palestinians were killed that year by Israeli settlers and soldiers. That's more than 3 times the number of deaths in 2022, which was 156. And that's not even counting the children. A separate report by Save the Children confirmed that 2023 was the deadliest year on record as well for children in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, and that is before October 7th. They counted 101 children killed by the beginning of October 2023. And that was before the genocide in Gaza, where Israel unleashed its full force of destruction and terror on the besieged and defenseless civilians. To understand the situation of the Palestinians, we must understand that almost half of the population are children. According to the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics, children make up about 44% of the total population, 41 in the West Bank and 47 in Gaza Strip. These children are our future. They are our hope. To all I mentioned before, this was our motive behind finding Anar. The need for healing in our community to be able to keep hope alive, even in the middle of despair and destruction. We founded Anar to heal the children of Palestine who have suffered from violence and oppression. We want to help them heal from their trauma and improve their well-being by offering community-based psychosocial support programs and activities that focus on their mental and emotional health. At Anar, we want to empower the community and foster creativity as ways to promote collective healing as well, by raising awareness, advocating for freedom, and provide psychosocial services. We hope that this can break the cycle of oppression and intergenerational trauma, that can introduce a different narrative for our children. The community experiencing trauma needs to develop community mechanisms and support systems to overcome the negative effects of systematic violence while seeking freedom. Anar is a non-profit organization situated in the city of Beit Sahur, near Bethlehem in Palestine, and supports the psychosocial needs of children in Palestine, especially in times of trauma and psychosocial distress. Our main target group is children. However, to be able to work with children, we seek to create a sustainable model by working with their caregivers, community leaders, teachers, social workers, who will be supporting children within the different communities. And it's a sustainable model that we think will be able to heal as many as possible. We design our programs and projects to support the healing process of our community by providing a sustainable model of healing. A model that not only intervenes with children, caregivers, and community members, as I said before, but enhances the capacity of community groups as well. We have 3 objectives as part of our goal at Anar. The first one is to provide access to inclusive and gender-sensitive community-based psychosocial support programs for Palestinian children affected by violence and oppression. Our second objective is to promote collective psychosocial support and healing by raising awareness and capacity building within the community, which includes practitioners, community leaders, youth members, and volunteers. Our third objective is to facilitate cultural and creative programming and interventions that promote community resilience, expression, and healing. We want to build the community's ability to cope and hope together. Our programming include three main programs. The first is called Community Resilience Program. The second is called Shababik, which translates to windows in English. And the third is Makan, space. These programs aim to improve the mental and emotional well-being of our children and their communities. My colleague Dara will elaborate further about the program updates, activities, and the difficulties and challenges we encountered or encounter in our fieldwork. Finally, children are the most vulnerable members of society in the face of occupation and war. It is essential to create safe spaces where they can play, learn, and thrive while using their imagination to experience freedom. They must feel that the sky is their limits, not walls and checkpoints. This genocide made the analogy, the sky is the limit, a difficult one. At once, children look in Gaza at the sky to see falling bombs, and at another times they see falling food. The sky is made for children to dream, not to die. My friends, I'm so happy to see many of you here. We need your voice more than ever. We need you to join us in the struggle for freedom, justice, and peace. Healing is indeed possible. Freedom and peace are also possible. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Rami. We are going to transition into sharing a video that I know you'd like to contextualize, focused on the work of Ruseila Lutfi, social worker with Aida Youth Center and Anar's partner in the Aida refugee camp. And I will just pause to say, for those of you asking, we will very clearly share some ways that you can get involved in supporting Anar going forward once we hear from all of our speakers. So Rami, before we show the video here, what would you like people to know about Ruseila's work?
It is important for us at Anar here to equip organizations and community-based organizations in refugee camps, in villages, in cities, and Bedouin communities, that they are creating a sustainable model for healing. So here we have started a psychosocial support unit at Aida Refugee Camp through our partner, the Youth Center at Aida Refugee Camp. And we believe we at ANAR aren't able to really respond to the whole need in the West Bank and Gaza. But through empowering organizations, we believe that healing is possible and it can be disseminated to a large number of communities and large number of children.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to start the video.
أنا رسيلة لطفي حاليا هي ضمن الواقع اللي حاليا والأحداث اللي بنشوفها بغزة قديش قلق، فكانت الفكرة إن نكون ضمن مشاعرهم وبتكون ضمن سلسلة لقاءات. حابة تحكي لنا إشي عن تجربتك، عن شعورك؟ حلو. سلام. دمست كثير. طيب ايش الاشياء اللي تخليك كثير مبسوطه؟ ببكي العب وبدرس وبتسلى يعني بتسلى مع زميلاتي ومع اخواتي. طيب ايش اشياء هيك عم تسمعي كثير عن اشياء بتصير بغزه ومرات بالمخيم كمان بتصير في مشاكل، فشو بتحسي؟ يعني بزعل الله يفرجها عليهم وببقى مبسوطة بتسلم. طيب ايش الاشياء اللي تخلي الله يفرجها عليهم؟ هاي الاطفال تحتوي مشاعرهم. طيب ايش ان شاء الله. طب ايش بتشعري لما كثير بصير هون اقتحامات ويدخلوا الجيش؟ شو بتحسي لما يدخلوا؟ شو بتعملي؟ بخاف وبظن انه كان واحد عشان بتخافي يجوا عندك يعني على البيت؟ طيب لما بتخافي وين بتروحي؟ عند مين؟ عند أبوي أو أمي أو هون أو وين أكثر محل بتحسي فيه بالأمان؟ هون أو البيت.
So I know there were probably a couple of troubles hearing all of that video. We can share the link to the video actually so that people can watch it on your own through YouTube. But the video itself is incredibly powerful for those of you who weren't able to catch every piece of it. My apologies that that was not quite as fluid as we would have liked. But you can watch that on your own on YouTube because that is public. So I would like to move us on to our final speaker before we talk about ways to get involved in the Q&A. Our final speaker is Dara Rafidi, who's a psychosocial support coordinator at ANAR. Dara is a clinical psychology Master of Science graduate with an artistic background in theater. Since 2012, she has been leading drama classes for disabled children and has been involved in several workshops in psychodrama. Dara's expertise lies primarily in working with children and caregivers in a range of contexts, such as clinics for those living with intellectual disabilities, refugee camps where children experience daily oppression, and crisis emergency contexts. Thank you so much for being here, Dara.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for everyone. As Rami has presented, at ANAR, we work through 3 core programs. Allow me to update you on our work and the challenges of delivering mental health and psychosocial support in Palestine. Okay. I will be starting with the Community Resilience Program. This program's primary objective is to provide community-based psychosocial support and capacity building to children, youth, and communities affected by violence and oppression. It is specifically designed to address the needs of those who have suffered from traumatic events and experiences and to help them rebuild their lives. We aim to create a safe space for them to receive support and access the necessary resources to heal and recover. Additionally, we seek to foster resilience, enhance the coping mechanisms of the communities, and lower their distress level. So how does this community-based psychosocial support happen? Firstly, by reacting to situations and administrating psychological first aid or PFA. We provide this initial course of action to individuals and communities during emergency situations. It's conducted by community leaders and volunteers who are members of protection groups and protection emergency response committees. These dedicated individuals assess the level of impact on each person and identify their immediate needs. These needs might be psychological, medical, social, or even legal needs. Second, we do psychosocial counseling sessions with children, designed for children who have experienced difficult events or live in stressful situations. We also work through sensitization and psychosocial group counseling for caregivers. This intervention focuses on supporting caregivers who live in conflict areas to develop the necessary skills to cope with the psychological stress caused by such circumstances. We also do community awareness sessions. The primary goal of these awareness raising sessions is to empower community leaders and caregivers with a deep understanding of children's developmental stages and the determinal effects of violent incidents on children. And we also do referrals for structured and specialized psychosocial support services. When we meet cases that need more complex help, we refer them to specialized services for appropriate providers and follow up on their cases. And lastly, we do structured and unstructured recreational activities for children. They serve as a positive outlet for emotions, reducing tension and anxiety caused by exposure to traumatic incidents, and providing a sense of balance and stability in their lives. These activities can welcome a large number of children, and they are done as a one-time activity, unlike counseling groups that aim for a fewer number of children with a more psychosocial needs and more sequential number of sessions and follow-ups. One of the places we are currently working at is Tkour, which is a town located east of Bethlehem. And our main aim was to form a child counseling group. On our first visit, we met with the municipality's director and the community rehabilitation counselor. We discussed the current political situation and how we can work together in delivering psychosocial support services for its local community and specifically children and caregivers. Usually, when we work in villages and towns, we deliver our group activities in two places, either in the municipality itself or in schools, but that would not work at Tkour. If you see the map I am presenting, this is Tkour. They had presented it to us to really understand the geopolitical context and the difficulties of moving around and doing fieldwork there. Tkour is surrounded by 5 military settlements. Most schools in Tkour are located on the main external streets that are intersection roads with the settlements. Since October 7th, their schools turned to 3 days of online teaching and 2 days of face-to-face teaching. They also had a new law for school buses to only transport first graders to fourth graders. They passed on these two laws because of the threat on school children and buses due to their location on the main streets closer to the settlements. That meant we could not enter schools as psychosocial support workers, because school's priority in this case is taking advantage of the 2 face-to-face days for real educational interaction with the children. So we replied to this situation by suggesting we meet with the children in the municipality. But gathering children from all over the town was impossible as well, because lots of Tkour's land are considered Area C, which are predominantly military lands, where Israel controls 76% of that area, while only 25% of the land is accessible or attainable for Palestinian use. And they have been taking control of lots of the town spaces lately. This turned the town into separate residential communities. Some people had to move from their homes to other towns and villages, while the rest are having difficult times to move around than before. And what applies to the town's residents considering moving also applies to us, the psychosocial support workers. So we concluded that the only way possible to work and do sessions is to target each community on its own. Right now, we are cooperating with Tkour's municipality in working with caregivers in the form of psychosocial support sessions in each residential block. Awareness sessions are easier to set up because they are a one-time session. So when conducting them, you avoid the emergency events that can lead to canceling sessions, such as military invasions or closing the entrance of a town. Awareness sessions can also include people from different psychosocial needs and interests. And speaking of closing towns, one time we had a workshop in Hebron, and after we were done, we were planning to go back to Bethlehem, but the checkpoint was closed. So we were trying different checkpoints that lead us to leave Hebron and to go back to Bethlehem. But all of the entrances of Bethlehem were closed, and it took us around 6 hours to figure out a way to go back to Bethlehem when we were supposed to leave Hebron around 4 p.m. and be back to Bethlehem around 6 p.m. We actually ended up back in Bethlehem around 11 p.m. Moving to our group counseling sessions, our current methodology of intervention is teaching children severe stress and anxiety management techniques and offering them a safe space for an open dialogue about specific traumatic events of interest, where they can talk and make art about their dreams and nightmares, as well as sharing daily life updates. In parallel, we deliver and teach the same management techniques to their caregivers in their group counseling sessions, so they can work on it with their children at homes to become part of their upbringing and to apply it personally. In such a process, We also work with caregivers through discussing personal issues, not just about their children. This helps them learn and apply self-care and personal empowerment, which enhances their relationships and emotional communication with their children. So, working through childhood trauma is both difficult and profoundly meaningful. One group we are engaging with comprises the children and siblings of detainees who have experienced witnessing their loved ones' arrest. 9 children aged 8 to 11. They all have witnessed the events of the arrest and observed it from start to an end, starting with banging on the door and crashing the house so loudly, waking up frightened of seeing soldiers with guns, seeing their fathers or brothers being treated violently in front of them, then the quick chance of saying goodbye before the arrest and watching them leave their house not knowing when they'll see them again or hear their voices. Their mothers have reported several symptoms and feelings they have been experiencing and expressing ever since the event happened. They were talking about constant nightmares, refusal to sleep alone. They would be sleeping with their mothers ever since the arrest. Academic level decreased, showing no interest in playing or doing normal activities they usually like to do, eating problems, either eating way too much or refusing to eat, and feelings of loss and sadness. When we sat with each child alone for an initial assessment of their psychosocial needs and symptoms, one thing that always struck me is how well those children, even young as 8, can express their situation and their well-being state clearly. One child, a 9-year-old boy, I met him for the initial assessment 3 months after his father had been imprisoned. He said, "What you are asking about now, I do not experience. I only did at the beginning. The first month after my dad's arrest, I lost interest in playing football and was feeling sad all the time, and I just felt bad. When I asked him about his physical well-being, he said, I used to have headaches at school and always had nightmares and woke up shivering. My whole body would be moving, but now I am way better. Of course, I do miss my dad and dream of him, but I am learning to be better." Such an answer for a 9-year-old indicates that their cognitive and psychosocial development outpaces their chronological age. That is because with each new experience an individual live, it enhances new feelings, bodily experiences, and adds on new cognitive processes. In children's cases, it reflects a premature maturation process induced by their exposure to adversity, which explains why children in Palestine mature faster. And a clear example on that is all the videos of children in Gaza talking about what they witnessed and their feelings and experiences. But it's still truly unfair for a child to read this personal expression at such a young age. We expect children at this point to learn more from us as adults, ask questions bigger than their ages, as we say, and need no more social guidance to grow and learn about life. But in our case, it is completely different because trauma or painful events forces them unconsciously to live an age they have yet reached. This brings me to another case of an 8-year-old girl. When I first met her and her mother, I did not pick up on any direct signs of unhealthy coping mechanisms. The child cried and expressed her feelings about her dad in the initial assessment, and the mother reported that her child is strong and she is able to communicate with her clearly about the incident. On our first group session, I have applied the safe place technique with the children. So this technique helps children to build, draw, and imagine a place they feel good at. We focus on components such as preferable sounds, colors, and objects, and I keep leading them to this place at any time that their stress increases at any point in further sessions. I invited children to close their eyes and went through their safe places with them. She raised her hand. I invited them to share with the group what their safe places were once we were done. She raised her hand in excitement, and suddenly she started talking about the night that they have abducted and arrested her father. Other children got confused, but I understood that she couldn't imagine a safe place because her mind is occupied with unspoken feelings about her father and the event itself. After this session, I met with the mothers in our caregivers group session. I had planned to discuss their children's daily routine to help me tackle unhealthy triggers, sleeping hours, and overall lifestyles that enhances their children's distress. When it was her mother's turn to speak, she started crying. She expressed her helplessness of dealing with her. She told me, before I leave the house, I make sure everything is tidy. I bath my children, feed them, and do everything. I tell them to play and study until I am back. I come back to find her, and keep in mind she is 8 years old, have fed all of her siblings for the second time, um, and her siblings are old as 15 years old, and did the dishes again, and made sure her siblings are studying and playing and not engaging with them in these activities. Her mother feels like her child is acting as their mother, and she does not know what to do. She ended her part by saying, I just want my child to act like a child again. I want her to cry and ask for my help. And this is the core point of what childhood trauma does for children. They grow faster than ever and are forced to live their childhood differently because they become exposed and aware to experiences that need advanced emotional and social knowledge and skills. When meeting with community leaders and members from different towns and places, they always report that they feel there is a challenge in communicating with their community's needs in such difficult times. On a visit to Janata's village, they were eager for community activities to be held there because they expressed their concern of two main problems. The first one was family problems affecting children, specifically after October 7th, because lots of men and fathers' work stopped, which is causing constant financial worry and stress inside homes. And another connected problem is that the mothers and women have been addressing such issues to the municipality and school counselors in hoping to find a way to contain the psychosocial need and lower the stress in their families. And that is the core of spreading and teaching mental health and psychosocial support skills to community leaders and volunteers. So when they are met with community challenges that requires leadership to empower change and hope, a psychosocial stance can be put in action. This case leads me to our second program, our youth coaching and mentorship program, Shababik, meaning windows in Arabic. Its primary goal is to aid the healing and personal growth of youth by empowering them to become catalysts within their own communities. The program follows a methodology that includes a training curriculum covering a wide range of subjects such as leadership, life skills, community development and mobilization, advocacy, and psychosocial support. It aims at targeting trainees from different domains working with children, such as mental health and psychosocial support, education, medicine, arts, and social clubs, taking into consideration the different sociocultural and psychological needs of different groups and communities. Our training materials and contents can be tailored to meet the needs of each special group. During our work with the groups, we offer mentorship and training supervision when applying the skills they are learning in their communities, as well as delivering community-based psychosocial support activities that we at ANAR do. Now we are piloting our training program at ANAR's headquarters with 14 youth community leaders. We are also doing different trainings in schools with university students, psychosocial workers coming from different villages and refugee camps in Bethlehem and Hebron. Two of our youth participants, for example, are an English school teacher and a school counselor who have been adapting some of our training activities specifically aimed at teaching communication skills with the children they work with in their schools. Concluding on a positive and powerful note, and because we believe in art's ability in healing, we are currently piloting the use of art in our psychosocial support interventions in our last and third program, Makan, which means space in Arabic. It is designed to facilitate the healing process of children through a playful, creative, and artistic journey that nurtures their imagination, enhances their coping mechanism, and allows for self-expression. We use drawing and building objects in our different sessions. If you see the picture in the middle, we were teaching children how to make stress balls using balloons and rice, for example, which are easy objects that they can find at their homes. We also, as well as hosting artistic psychosocial support sessions for children through creative writing at our headquarters. In drama, we are cooperating with a children theater actor and director to write and direct a psychosocial session using drama tools. This session's topic and content could be tailored depending on the needs of the group we work with, meaning it will stick with the same characters and plot, but a different story. Children will be part of finding a solution for the plot that the characters find themselves stuck in. To work in psychosocial support is a never-ending need in our community. and it cannot be done only by professionals such myself and my colleagues, but need bigger level of networking. What we aim at ANAR is advocate the right of psychosocial support for everyone through advocacy, awareness sessions, and capacity building, through youth and community leaders training, where they can transform the knowledge and skills we offer them and share it with other community networks. Only this way, healing to hope can happen, the hope that everyone in the community can work, learn, and support each other no matter what they work or do at life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dara, for your words and for the incredible work, and that is for all of our presenters here today. Before we move on to our last 15 minutes of Q&A, I think, Rami, it would be a good time to let people know about ways that they can get involved and support ANAR going forward. I think some people have asked questions about ways they can donate to the ongoing work. So that might be the first thing that we talk about. And before we jump into that, I just want everyone to know we will share some links in the chat for you, but we will also make sure we email you everything that we're about to share with you just now. So for folks who are interested in donating, Rami, would you like to speak to that?
We have launched in November a GoFundMe fundraiser to support our mobile clinic that will be touring the West Bank in 2024 and 2025. Luckily, we have been able to raise the funds for 2024, and now we are trying to raise the remaining amount for 2025. The link you would see in the bio, in the chat.
Great. And I know some people have inquired about making multi-year donations and what that will look like to support ANAR going into the future. Do you think you could speak about that a little bit?
Sure. We are trying to organize a friendship association in the US and hopefully in other places to not only fundraise for ANAR and create a sustainable financial way, but also to connect with friends, advocates, artists who are able to support us in our journey for healing and for justice.
Beautiful. And so if people are interested going forward in multi-year donations, they can email you to inquire about that specifically. But right now
Sure.
we're looking at supporting 2025. And your email address we can put into the chat too. And then also I know there are people who aren't able to make monetary contributions, but who are very interested, as you were saying, and we're building a network of people who are invested in this work, who are get involved in other ways. So I wonder if we could talk about ways that people could do that in volunteering.
Sure. If you visit our website, anar.ps, there is a section about getting involved in our work through volunteering with us or sharing resources or different ways you will see there. It is important that for our work is that we build friendships with artists, with advocates, with friends from everywhere, because we believe that the journey to justice is a collective one, and we hope that you will be part of it.
Beautiful. And that link will be in the chat or is in the chat, and we will share it with you. And then finally, just so people know, there are other ways just to spread the word about ANAR, whether it is finding a way to organize an online talk with Rami and other incredible presenters from ANAR, whether there are those of us who are in the US who are organizing and able to do in-person presentations and talks with groups. Also, we are in the midst of building a nonprofit US branch of ANAR. There are many reasons for that. If you're interested in learning more about that in the future, you can actually reach out to me, and that's Sarah@anar.ps. So that will be in the chat as well. So was there anything else that I'm missing, Rami, as far as people getting
Sarah,
involved?
if you allow me, I really want to thank everyone for being part of this online event, but I really want to thank specifically three people that have been vital in making this online event possible, but also our fundraising campaign possible as well. Thank you, Sarah, Karen, and Travis for all your energy, all your work that you have given to Anar. And we really appreciate you. And hopefully we will make healing and justice possible.
And we deeply appreciate you on a profound level. So thank you all. Okay, so we have about 15 minutes or a little bit less for the Q&A. A few things just to set forward. We're going to use the Q&A, so it's different from the chat. People are tracking if you've asked things in the chat, and we will review that afterwards. So please know you're being seen. There's just a lot to manage right now. It is easier for us to use the Q&A for the chat because we have a lot of people here today. And that way we can track questions. We can see questions that are coming up that may be coming up more than once, and we can prioritize those for now. If we are not able to get to your question today, please know it's still very important to us. So you can send your question after the event to rami@anar.ps, and we will get back to you about that. But we're going to try to honor the questions that we can now, so we're going to transition to that. Do know that what will happen is you can post a question. So you click on the Q&A at the top of your screen. What it will actually say to you, sorry, I have to remind myself what it tells you. So it tells you your question will be published when it's approved by the administrator. We can't guarantee it will be published because of the reasons I just shared, but we will see it and we will honor it and we will address it as best we can. So that said, I welcome you to entering questions in the Q&A. It's right next to the chat, and I'll give everybody a moment to move forward here as I take a look behind the scenes, and I will ask the questions of our presenters. So first question is, do you do any work in refugee camps?
I can answer that, Rami. Yes, we do. So the group that I presented, the case group, was actually from a refugee camp. So we work in refugee camps, in towns, villages, any place that has political oppression and anyone who needs psychosocial support. So yes, we do access refugee camps in Beit Lahem, in Hebron specifically.
Great. And that video with Rusela, I know when people get a chance to watch it, you can see that she's speaking from Aida refugee camp. We have a question about, is it okay to go to the GoFundMe page and make a donation right now? Yes. Sorry, I'll send it to your presenters, but I will just say yes, it is. Others who want to jump in and say more, Rami or Jara, please do. Anything else besides yes?
Yes, you can.
And thank you very much. Okay. And maybe we can re-put that link. I know Karen put it in a moment ago, but maybe we can just repost that quickly in the chat for people who want to go right now. Okay, next question we have here is, do you see differences in reaction to trauma gender-wise between boys and girls or across the gender spectrum?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I can answer from my experience, and also Rami, I'm sure he has what to say. A little bit, yes. You can see the differences in reactions in older children. I want to say teenagers. girls tend to express their emotions when it comes to the traumatic event way openly than boy teenagers, but less than teenagers, no. So right now, the group that I'm working with that are 8 to 11 years old, they are all expressing it the same way. They all have the same space of expressing their emotions and reacting to it the same way. So I'm not seeing this difference, but for sure, whenever I lost the words. The more children are older, the more there are social determinations of how to express your emotions. So yes, you'll see then the differences in reacting to trauma, if that answers it.
Thank you, Dara. Rami, do you want to add anything to that?
I will elaborate from a cultural point of view. I think we live in a patriarchal society where men have more power than, or given more power than women. So I would say children who experience violence will have more space to release what they feel than women. Women are asked to suppress their feelings as part of being living in a patriarchal society. From that point of view, I would say there would be a difference.
Thanks, Rami. Okay, next question is, who helps you in the outreach to communities? And do you have volunteers helping in that way? I know the model is complex.
Sure. We do have volunteers. Our main methodology is that when we reach to communities, we don't start offices or organizations in those communities, but we train community leaders, organizations who already have set up, who are already there in the communities. They have the legitimacy of the different places, whether it is a refugee camp, a village, a Bedouin community. And we work with them to offer psychosocial support interventions, or we support them to start safe spaces, convene trainings that help healing processes. So we believe that this model is more sustainable because it's equipping communities to be more resilient, to be more understanding of psychosocial needs, and by that, be more proactive in supporting their communities.
Beautiful. I think that transitions well to the next question, which is whether you do work with educators and schools. And I don't know if the question is asking this exactly, but trainings, I do know you do quite a lot of.
Sure. Actually, today we had a session with school teachers to sensitize them on mental health needs within the school, but also to teach them how to do psychological first aid. We are working also with school counselors on how to create models, sustainable models within schools. So a big part of our work is to strengthen existing organizations such as schools, whether working with social workers and teachers as well.
These are fantastic questions, everyone. We're going to get to a few more and stop at a few minutes before the hour just for a closing. Are there opportunities, someone wants to know, to volunteer virtually right now?
I mean, let's have a conversation, and by the conversation, let's grow together the possibility. So we don't have a very clear understanding whether it is possible to volunteer virtually, but I think it's always possible for people to put force together and do good. So if you feel you have something to offer, please be in contact, and we will work together for sure on making service possible.
That's great. And I think, just so people remember, you have the link to the volunteer page on ANAR's website. And so that would be a place for you excuse me, to share what you're able to volunteer, or how you would like to volunteer. Okay.
And I think one of the things, if I may add something, that
Please.
we ask our network to do is to lobby on behalf of children in Palestine. And I think by staying connected with ANAR, it gives you more information about the abuses of children's rights, what's happening through the work we're doing. It gives you keeps you more informed, and I hope more passionate to help us on the advocacy and legal level, because you know, we hope we don't need to do this in the future. We hope there is no colonization. So we need you to stay connected with us as well. And I think that's something you could do even from where you are to support us.
And I wonder, Reverend Isaac, the next question might be one you could start out speaking to, at least, both about ANAR and beyond. The person who's asking this has been involved in trauma healing work among refugees, and they mostly work through faith-based communities. Do you address faith in your training and support for children? Is that a part of the work, or how does that work? And maybe that's more a Rami question also.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear, so Sarah, something was interrupting. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I'll ask again. So the question is, a person who's asking this has been involved in trauma healing work among refugees, and they mostly work through faith-based communities. Do you address faith in your training and support of children? Is that part of the work?
We respect different way of people dealing with faith and how they relate to their faith in the counseling sessions. Usually people bring what they believe into the counseling session, which is completely fine. However, we do not force our faith because our staff are coming from different backgrounds, from different cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds. So we don't force faith on in the counseling approach or session.
Thank you for that, Rami. So I think because we're just about at time, we're going to wrap up our Q&A and have just some final remarks now. And I want to thank everyone, this incredible group of people who are here today in community, and how many of you are fighting for Palestinian liberation in all sorts of ways, and the ways that you're supporting ANAR are so important. And thank our incredible presenters for your deeply moving and empowering words and this work that you're doing all the time. I am honored to be here with you today, so thank you so much. And for people who have joined us, again, we will share all of these resources for you to get involved in an email afterwards. And I will turn it over to you, Rami, for our final thoughts.
Thank you, Sarah. I really want to thank everyone. We weren't expecting this large crowd. And it is so important for us to see that people really care about healing and hope in Palestine in the midst of the injustice. It's inspiring. What we live in is a very difficult moment of history. But one thing we tell you, we are strong, and we will keep fighting for hope, fighting for healing, fighting for justice for Palestinian children. Until that moment, thank you so much, and have a good night, evening, morning, whatever time is there.
So again, thank you all for joining us today. We're going to bring the gathering to a close. If you didn't have a chance to ask your questions, please do send them to rami@anar.ps, and we look forward to being in touch with you in the future.